We are going to deal with a short story, Kundi and Nishadin by Mahashweta Devi. Mahashweta Devi is a prolific writer of short fiction, novels and dramas in Bengali. So Kundi and Nishadin is a kind of a rereading of Mahabharata. It is inspired by Mahabharata, and the following episodes of Mahabharata are dealt in this particular story: the birth of Karna and the Pandavas, Kundi's abandonment of Karna, and the Pandavas' stay at Jadugriha or the Lakh Palace. So this particular story unravels the patriarchal class and caste structures that are hidden in this epic text. So we shall deal the story in detail. It is Kundi who has to tend to Dhritarashtra and Gandhari in this final chapter of their life, the retreat into the forest. So Dhritarashtra and Gandhari had planned, after the Kurukshetra Yuddha, after the loss of all their children, they had planned to spend the rest of the life in the forest, and Kundi joined them to be in service of them. Kundi feels that it is after all her duty to look after the elderly brother-in-law and his wife, who chooses not to see with her eyes. As we know about Gandhari, since Dhritarashtra is blind, she has tied her eyes, and then she had decided not to live by seeing everything. This is a forest ashram, not a royal palace. Where they are living is a forest ashram and not a royal palace. She is the one who collects the firewood for the daily ceremonies of fire. So they have daily ceremonies there in the forest, religious ceremonies, and then Kundi is the one who is collecting the firewood for that. The afternoons are a magical time. She leaves the ashram and goes into the forest. She takes a rope woven from grass, binds the wood into a bundle, rests a while, then drags the firewood back to the ashram. Had Bhima been around, he would never have let her do this job. So if Bhima was there, he would never have let her carry all this firewood. One day, she sees some middle-aged Nishadins moving around about the forest with their children and families. So she saw Nishadin women who are moving around. Are they indeed middle-aged? The occasional silver strand of hair would suggest so. Such strong limbs, muscled shoulders, they look so masculine. They gathered the wood, tied it in bundles with forest vines. At sundown, they heft their bundles onto their heads. Then they spark flint like flaming torches of wood and follow the jungle path home, singing their own songs. So they used to collect all this firewood, all everything, and they used to carry it on their head, and they used to go by singing songs. Kundi has never tried to learn the language they speak. She never know the language that these Nishadin women they speak. This forest is full of tall resinous trees of resin, which easily catches fire. They gather this resin, honey, tubers, and roots. They seem to be a tranquil, happy working lot, their faces always wreathed in bright smiles. Resin trickled down the tree trunks. The incense-scented breeze soothes Kundi's weary, wasted body and relieves her fatigue. So like this resin, the smell of the resin is so good that it soothes the tired Kundi. Watching the Nishadins strikes her for the first time that she is wasting herself living like this, subsisting on rotting, withered leaves, blindly following a predestined path to death. So when she sees this Nishadins, she feels as though she is really wasting her lives. They look so happy. Kundi can now look back. She never knew that she carried within her such a burden of unspoken thoughts and feelings. Life in the Rajavrata was so different. The life at Rajavrata in the palace was so different. Mother of the Pandavas, wife of Pandu, the role of daughter-in-law, the role of queen, the role of mother, playing these hundreds of roles where was the space, the time to be true to her oneself. So she was playing all these roles, and then she really did not have any time for her true self. All that while amazingly, she never felt that anything was hers alone. There was nothing that was hers alone. Now she can just once, in the first fragrant bloom of youth, the memory burns inside her like a funeral pyre. It will rage unabated till she dies. Till she dies, these memories will be there. There was nothing that was close to her, that was hers alone. Even her husband, she had to share her husband with Madri. Even her sons, they married other women, and then they were more towards that life. Now she can't bear to keep it all locked inside her. She wants to confess. She wants to speak her mind out freely. If only she could unburden herself to their forest, these rocks, birds, insects, withered leaves. The Nishadin women move around, sometimes close, sometimes at a distance, but there is no exchange of words with them. Her body worn thin by observing numerous religious austerities, white-haired, clad in a length of white silk, cloth of unblemished purity. Kundi's eyes are the only things about her still alive. Only her eyes are the only things that are alive about her. Yet those eyes register nothing about the Nishadins moving about in front of her, not even by a look. She hated the sight of Nishadins. She felt like as though they are low caste, and then she don't want to be around them. How could they? Her life had been the Rajavrata, the god serving the Brahmins. Had she ever spoken to a Dasi? Had she developed any genuine bond with Hidimba? Life outside the Rajavrata had not touched her at all. She still lives as though a person from Rajavrata. She has never spoken to a Dasi. She had never even closely acquainted with Hidimba, her own daughter-in-law, who belongs to Rakshasa family. Why are these Nishadins moving about so close to her? She doesn't care. Kundi just wants to lay bare her deepest thoughts lying heavy in her heart. She needs to confess. Kundi needs to confess. Gandhari and her bandaged eyes fill Kundi with, oh, how stately she is. She is so glorious, so wonderful a lady she is. The loss of 100 sons had not succeeded in shattering her composure. Even though she lost 100 sons, she doesn't lose that grace that is there with her. Gandhari knows that she has always walked the right path, is doing her duty, will do so till her dying day. Gandhari is a woman who is always true to herself. Since she is true to herself, she need not worry about anything. But Kundi needs to speak. She still has something to say. Every day she feels weaker, more exhausted. Kundi really feels very weaker, very exhausted. Looking after the Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, settling them safely in the ashram hut, she feels as if she can hardly move. When will she be able to speak her mind? She is tired of doing all the works that are there in the ashram, to do everything alone. She may as well talk to these trees, the rivers, the birds, the murmuring leaves, the winds, even to the Nishadins, who, even if they hear her, won't understand. So in all these leaves, whatever it be, nothing will understand her language, not even the Nishadins. The Nishadin doesn't know the language of Rajavrata, won't ask any questions. None of them will ask her any questions. When the sun sets in the west, they will leave and Kundi will return to the ashram, arrange for the Dhritarashtra and Gandhari's evening rituals, sup of pulped leaves, drink some water and lie down to the sleep on the grass mat. Was there a time when she slept on a sandalwood bed on sheets as soft and white as the froth on milk? She remembers her life in the Rajavrata, in the palace. At the palace, she used to sleep on sandalwood bed, and her sheets were as white as the froth of the milk. When she feasted on 7 kinds of dishes, rice soaked in ghee, 8 of golden platters, was it she who made all these arrangements for the many yajnas kept fast during the pujas? Which Kundi was it who called upon the sun, who was herself as beautiful as the rising sun's crimson rays, whose cloud of dense black hair the dasis ride with fragrance, incense, smoke, who would go to her husband elaborately dressed and adorned with jewelry? So Kunti is remembering about her past. She had a blessing that if she want from whichever god she can bear children, and then just to try that she tried it with sun god, and then she got Karna, and it was before her marriage, so she had to hide her motherhood. So when Karna was born, she put him in the river, like in a basket, and a carpenter received him, and Karna grew up as a carpenter's son. Yudhishthira, Bhima and Arjuna were born of her womb, but they were not sired by Pandu. Even though they are called Pandavas, they are not sired by Pandu. They were all born of some gods. Did she lavish love on Nahula and Sahadeva because they were motherless boys? So Pandu had a kind of curse that if like once he went for hunting, and then he killed an animal, probably a deer. He killed it, and by mistake, and they were mating, those deer, they were mating, and he got the curse that if he mate with his wife, then he will die. So Pandu had that relation with Madri, and then Pandu died, and Madri jumped into his funeral pyre, like Sadi. Or was she just playing the role expected of her? Where was her courage, her dharma? Kundi talks to herself. How is she to be purged and cleansed if she doesn't first confess? If she doesn't confess, how she is going to clear her sin? O Mother Earth, protector of the forest, hills, waters, and all living things, hear what Kundi has to say. I am not truly pious and beautiful like Gandhari. So Kundi is confessing that she is not pious and beautiful like Gandhari. I lack the courage that comes from Dharma. I was overwhelmed to find my sons alive after the battle of Kurukshetra. When my sons were alive, I was overwhelmed. But Draupadi and Uttara were devastated at the death of their sons. They lost their sons and they were so sad. I could not console them. Gandhari did. Gandhari consoled even my daughter-in-laws. I saw how, even after the loss of 100 sons, she consoled them. She told them over and over again, this massacre was preordained, unavoidable. So Gandhari always used to say that this particular massacre, it was like preordained. It was surely going to happen. Like you, I too have lost my sons. Who will console whom? So that was Gandhari's thought. Who is going to console whom? Because even Gandhari lost her sons. This chapter of death is now past. Come, let us dry our tears. We must not allow ourselves to be undone by grief. Harden your hearts. Of course, death is nothing but an epic of sorrow. But we wives, mothers, daughters, and sisters have to live on. To survive, we need courage and the strength to bear pain, because this grief is going to be our lifelong companion. Our grief is going to be our lifelong companion. No, I have none of Gandhari's true piety and righteousness. When before Krishna she mourned the death, was it only her dead sons and grandsons, the countless widows she lamented over? So Gandhari did not only cry only for her children, she cried for the entire people who were dead. As she sat there with the dead Abhimanyu's body, though Abhimanyu is the grandson of Kundi, Gandhari sat with Abhimanyu's body in her lap and she cried. Every time she raised her voice to cry aloud, I realized she was cursing war and bloodshed on behalf of all the women in this world. That is what makes her Gandhari. This war was a battle for power, a war to wipe out the other and establish oneself as all-powerful. Did Dharma triumph? Was Adharma vanquished? The heart-rending wails of the women at the sight of all those bloodied savage corpses was a curse on the war itself. And oh, Mother Earth, listen to me. She is speaking out her mind. She is speaking out all what she was holding till now. Brighter than a flame he was, uncompromising archer of archers. Karna, she is remembering Karna. Karna looked so much at peace as he lay there dead. Gandhari's piercing cry at the sight of Karna's body struck me like a whip. Gandhari was crying when Karna was dead, and Kundi was the mother of Karna, but then she did not go near him or caressed his dead body. So, like at the end of Kurukshetra Yuddha, what happened was that either Karna or Arjuna will be dead, and Kundi went and requested Karna to spare Arjuna, and Karna said, all your sons will be spared except Arjuna. But then finally, Karna himself, he surrendered, he just let himself die. Why did I not have the courage to cradle Karna's severed head in my lap and say, this is my firstborn? Why did I have not the courage to take Karna's head and caress it? Dhananjaya, you have murdered your eldest brother. O Arjuna, you have murdered your eldest brother, the son I abandoned for fear of public shame. Had I not disowned him, my name would have been sullied forever. If I had not disowned him, then my name would have been ruined. Karna is the only one of my sons whose father I took out of my free will. What irony, what irony. Not one of the 5 Pandavas is sired by Pandu, yet they are Pandavas, and Karna is forever a carpenter's son. Gandhari knew she was pure and innocent. This knowledge gave her the courage to publicly speak the truth. Gandhari knew she is true to herself, so she had the courage even to curse Krishna. Else would she have been able to curse Krishna, that Krishna who could have stopped the war, but instead who was the cause of the war. Fearless, upright, unshakable and sure of herself, Gandhari cursed Krishna, and I, silent, listened. Kundi could only listen. I don't deserve your forgiveness. The wealth and power of the royal palace, the might of the sun who ruled on the throne, all that tore me apart. Thus, this lonely forest, this closeness to nature, the daily sunsets, all this shows me how petty and ignoble human beings are. Where is the effect here in nature's kingdom of that massive and meaningless battle for power, that senseless bloodbath, that massacre? Where? Earlier my eyes could not see, my mind could not understand, but I have lashed my conscience over and over, and I have realized if I do not speak out now, it will be the ultimate sin. So she feels like she should confess. She should confess this. Suddenly Kundi lifted her head. Stone-faced, unmoving, the Nishadins were staring at her. The Nishadins were looking at her. She did not care. Kundi was speechless. The elderly Nishadin said something to the others who knew what. They fell over each other laughing. They were laughing at her. Kundi was trembling, terrified. Would they come closer? Would these Nishadins come closer? Their shadows may fall on the firewood for the sacred rites and defile it. She is worried just because if their shadows even fall on this firewood, it will be defiled. Evening was approaching. Kundi stood up. Her thin fingers tightened on the grass rope as she dragged the bundle away. She would find another spot tomorrow, another spot where Nishadins won't be there. After today's confession, it feels as if she was finding herself again. She felt quite relieved after this confession, as if she was being cleansed. Amazing how light she felt. Worry doesn't just burn your soul, but it is a heavy burden as well. Worry is a big burden. Talking before the Nishadins was the same as talking to the rocks and stones to the earth. She thought that talking to Nishadins is just like talking to the stones because they don't understand the language. They do not know her language and she did not know theirs. When Kundi helped her lie down, Gandhari said to her, "O mother of 5 Pandavas, the touch of your hands is always cool, but today they feel warmer," because she confessed she was quite warm. As if the blood is circulating through your veins, even your touch is alive today. The forest feels as warm as mother's embrace, O elder one. Do you find peace? This is the conversation between Kundi and Gandhari. Perhaps. Free your mind from earthly cares. I do not have your strength of character, but I try. With every passing second, we move towards the end. I am waiting for death. Yes, O elder one. Kundi lay down on the grass mat at their feet. No one had wanted her to come away. It was all right for Dhritarashtra and Gandhari to leave for the forest ashram, but why should the mother of the emperor of Jambudvipa, girdled by the 7 seas, go with them? It was Kundi's decision to go with them, to take care of them. Kundi said to herself, life in the Rajavrada was tearing me apart. Today, for no reason at all, Kundi bathed in the forest stream again. her white hair left loose, she sat with her back turned to the sun. What if the sun looked down at her today? Would he even recognize her? Would he, the sun god with whom she got Karna, will the sun recognize her? 1,000,000 years for mankind are a mere instant for the gods. Why does she feel the urge to confess everything? No, she doesn't think the Nishadins come to this part of the forest. So she is looking for a place where Nishadins won't be there. The trees and bushes look the same. It is possible to confuse one's way. But Vidura had taught her well. As you move through the forest, break a branch, place a stone under a tree, carve a sign, and you won't lose your way. So Vidura has taught her really well how she should go about the forest so that she won't lose her way. Always keep signs. He had said, Aryanaka, the spirit of the forest herself, shies away from the human beings. She knows the forest tribes well. They never lose their way. But Aryanaka's magic leads outsiders astray. So Aryanaka, the spirit of the forest, can astray the outsiders. Keeping the kingship tree on the path to the ashram in mind, and don't stray too far. This is the information, or this is the advice she got from Vidura. Is there anything to be afraid of? Fear is a state of mind. The forest feels good. No wide roads, no rows of shops, no cavalry marching up and down, no thundering wheels of royal chariots rumbling by. Here, so there is no such hurriness what you see in Rajavrita, all the carts, horses, nothing of that sort is there in forest. Here one can be alone with oneself. Here one can whisper and one can confess. It is not possible in palace where there are so many dasis. O Devi Vasundhara, O Mother Earth, after Kurukshetra, countless funeral pyres were lit. All those foot soldiers who were dragged from faraway lands were together and who sacrificed their lives in the battle were at Yudhishthira's orders burned on mass pyres organized by Vidura. The air was thick with the stench of burning flesh. To cover the stink of putrefaction, ghee and camphor were poured into the flames, but the fumes of death may not be easily hid. I hesitated no more. I haven't committed just one sin after all. I hadn't told my sons about the birth of Karna. I never told my sons about the birth of Karna. Then the day before the battle, I went to Karna and told him, abandon Duryodhana, side with Yudhishthira. Please side with Yudhishthira because he is your real brother. And yet he did nothing to insult me. Karna did not do anything to insult me. I said, son, you were born of my womb, do as I tell you. How intolerable the depths of my audacity. He could have said in reply, just nurturing a child in your womb is not enough. He could have told me that. You sacrificed him after birth. You carried out none of the responsibilities of motherhood. How can you now demand him obedience as a son? Karna could have asked me so many questions, but he did not ask me anything. He did not. The reason I didn't go to him was that I was driven mad by love. I didn't worry about him at all. Didn't think of him even once. All my concern was for the Pandavas. But Gandhari raised her voice high in lamentation over Karna. She cried aloud. For 13 years, Yudhishthira couldn't sleep for fear of Karna. Karna was an unvanquishable as Indra, as brave as Agni, as serene as Himalaya. May I be cursed. I stood there silent. Everybody were afraid of Karna. Karna, nobody could kill him, but it is only at the request of Kundi that he surrendered, and then he made himself ready to die at the hands of Arjuna. Living in the Rajavrata makes one cunning, treacherous. I never visited Karna, hungering to hold him to my bosom. I never went near Karna. For my son's sake, I told him to leave Duryodhana, join Yudhishthira. Why I asked him to join Yudhishthira is also for my own sake, for the sake of the life of Pandavas. Now I feel Karna knew that the clever trickster Vasudeva Krishna would ensure the victory went to the Pandavas. Only the wars of the victorious are known as Dharma Yuddha. This is a big statement. Only the wars of the victorious are referred to as Dharma Yuddha. The wars of the vanquished are never called thus. Knowing this, Karna said he could not abandon Duryodhana. He was very true to Duryodhana. Apart from Arjuna, he would not harm any of the Pandavas. You will still have 5 sons after left alive, which means he considered himself as one of my sons. And I never once said to him, that he is my son. I never acknowledged him. The memory of abandoning you at birth tortures me daily, burns me up inside. I never told this to Karna. Why didn't I? Because I didn't suffer over the loss. I felt no yearning for him. I felt no yearning for Karna. The Pandavas were my primary concern. So I said to him, you say you mean your brothers no harm, then you must look out for them. You should take care of them. Curse me, curse the mother of the 5 Pandavas. When the cremations were over, when Karna was nothing but ashes, I told Yudhishthira. So she told only to Yudhishthira, when you perform the Tarpan, the ceremony after the death, do one for Karna as well. He was fathered by Surya Deva, born in my womb, my firstborn son. When he asked me why I had not told this before, I knew that my sons would always hold these questions against me. I knew they would always hold this question against me, because Yudhishthira, after the Tarpan ceremony on the banks of Ganges, asked me, how did it come about that, how was that he was sired by a god and born of your womb? To ask such a question of me, Yudhishthira. Even Yudhishthira was also born like that. You are 5 brothers, yet none of you were sired by Pandu. I could have answered your question. I could have told this to you, but I didn't. I could have said it came about in just the same way that you, Bhima and Arjuna, were sired by Dharma, Vayu and Indra and born of my womb. Just as Nagula and Sahadeva were sired by the Ashwini Kumaras and born of Madri's womb, Karna was sired by Surya Deva and born of mine. Yudhishthira, you ask me why? You ask me why? No, I never even thought of doing anything on my own. Pandu told me, a woman can beget sons with the aid of another man. I got my lord's permission. I got the permission of Pandu. I went ahead. The only time I took a man I wanted, of my own free will, I got Karna. I was unmarried then. There was no such need of husband's assent. In today's society, Yudhishthira, if her husband should wish it, a woman can beget a child sired by other, but no young girl can become a mother of her own free will. Madhavi. So with Pandu's permission, she got these sons. But a young woman out of marriage was never supposed to have like that. Madhavi, the Rishi's daughter, on her father's command, bore 4 sons sired by 4 different men. She was unmarried, but she was carrying out her father's orders, so society accepted her. I am Pandu's wife. My husband is not the father of my sons, yet you are all Pandavas. But Karna will never be any more than a carpenter's son. I will never acknowledge him before others. I feel that someday the future will grant Karna the respect and honor he deserves. But not to me. No, not by me. Pouring her heart out to the Mother Earth, Kundi lifted her head. The elderly Nishadin watched her chin upon a rock. The Nishadin women were watching her. And wonder of wonders, her eyes seemed to be speaking to Kundi, this Nishadin woman. Her eyes seems to be speaking to her. A bolt of lightning sears through Kundi's brain. That gaze full of pity. Why were they looking at me with pity? Pity. For Kundi, Nishadin was pitying her. She bent down, tied the small bundle of wood firmly with a rope and walked away. At times the ashram seems so close. Today it feels far, far away. One sees mirages in a desert. A spot of water now so close, now so distant. This is forest, not a desert. All at once she saw the flowering kingshuk tree and beside it the ashram. She saw the ashram. Clasping Kundi's hands in her thin, old ivory-hued fingers, Gandhari whispered, calm down, O mother of the Pandavas, calm down. Time moves in cycles, circling with the wheels of the chariot. Our life cycle is shrinking. Soon it will be just a dot, and finally, even the dot will merge into the void. Yes, O elder one. Don't blame yourself too harshly. No matter how hard you try, you can never bring back the past. Never turn yesterday into tomorrow. See, today's sunrise was real, so was the sunset. We will fall asleep, but time will keep moving, and tomorrow it will give us yet another sunrise. Touching Gandhari's feet, Kundi lay down on the grass mat. She prayed silently, sleep, come soon. She just wants to sleep. Lay my mind at rest. This afternoon, as Kundi was about to sit on a rock under a tree in the forest, she felt an unease in the usually peaceful place, as if the breeze itself was spreading a sense of alarm. She grew alert, watchful. Today the forest was not quiet. Suddenly she became quite alert. Today it is not quiet. Flocks of birds were leaving their nest and flying away. All the birds were fleeing away. Monkeys were leaping from tree to tree, vanquishing into the depths of the forest. Astonishingly, even the herds of cheetah were flying somewhere. All the animals were retreating, all were escaping. What has happened? Nisha, the men, women, children with their pet hunting dogs, they were walking off, carrying bundles of belongings on their heads. Not only the animals, even the Nishadin families were moving away. Well, let them go. Let them desert the forest. Today Kundi would ask Mother Earth, where has she gone wrong? What was her crime? When would she be able to forgive herself? She started at the sight of someone's shadow. There is somebody's shadow. The elderly Nishadin. The elderly Nishadin is near her. Kundi raised astonished eyes. Why was this dark-skinned woman carved of black stone standing so close to her, bending down towards her, searching for her eyes? Why is she staring at me? No confessing of sins today? The old Nishadin woman said. Kundi was so shocked. She's talking in my language. You. I have heard you out day after day, waiting to see if you will confess your gravest sin. I was just waiting to see whether you will confess your gravest sin. Your language, like mine. Oh yes, I not only understand it, I speak it too, of course. You never thought of us as human, did you? You never thought of we Nishadins as human, do you? No more than the mute rocks or trees or animals. But you never spoke a word. Kundi was still at shock. Today is the day I have been waiting for. We have been seeking you for years. We don't enter the town, you see. In the end, you came to us. It was bound to be. This is karma. Finally, you are here with us. We wanted to see you. Finally, you are here with us. We have waited years for you, Kundi. You know my name? Kundi is so shocked. The Nishadin laughed. She said, it hurts, doesn't it, that a Nishadin could call you by name. Yes. I took you by name. In this forest you are defenseless, Kundi. Your sons are not with you. They can't send the army. They can't send the soldiers to punish us. Do you know that rishis dwell in this forest? Oh, we see plenty of rishis about. This is the land of our birth. You know, Devi Aryanaka is our mother. Abruptly, Kundi felt drained and exhausted. She felt so exhausted. They had come to the forest ashram from Gandhavar, wishing to do penance and starve their emancipated body to death, where they could find no one who will know them. Why then did she feel offended at Nishadin's effrontery in addressing her by name? Was it Nishadin? What is it, Nishadin? What do you want? She is asking the Nishadin, what do you want? You haven't confessed to your greatest sin. You haven't confessed your greatest sin. Yes, I have. You forged my language. You hurt me. No, Kundi. That was a sin committed during your Rajavrta life, even though your son was not yet king. That was a time before your marriage you committed that sin. I spoke of Karna too. I even spoke of Karna. I confessed everything. The Rajavrta folk and the Logavrta folk had different values, different ideas of right and wrong. If a young Nishad girl makes love to a boy of her choice and gets pregnant, we celebrate it with a wedding. What in the case of Rajavrta? You have been hiding it. What kind of law is that? Kunti is like totally speechless. Nature's law. Nature abhors waste. We honor life. When a man and woman come together, they create a new life. But you won't understand. What are you saying? That my confession has no value? Are you saying that my confession has no value? For you it does. For you, your confession got value. Not for us, but to the people of the Logavrta, to sacrifice or harm innocence into one's own self-interest is the most unpardonable sin. You are guilty of that sin. I, against the Logavrta? Remember the town of Varanavada, Kundi? Yes, I went there many years ago. Let me jog your memory. You stayed there in the house of lack, Jadugriha. Yes, it was a plot by Duryodhana Remember how it was rumored that you and your 5 sons had burned to death there? Do you remember there was a rumor that you and your 5 sons were dead? But that was a scheme, right? A cruel plot done by you. Only the Rajavrata can do such a thing. You live there for 1 year, knowing fully well that the place will be burned to ashes, that you have to save yourself and your sons. You had to provide irrefutable proof that the 6 of you had been burned to death. Nishads and Nishadins were regular visitors there, weren't they? Weren't the Nishads and Nishadins regular visitors? But shut up, listen, shut up and listen. They would come from the forest. They supplied timber, animal hides, ivory, venison, medicinal herbs, resin, honey. Both men and women would sell their wares in exchange for salt, clothes, rice. Then they would drink some wine, sing and dance arm in arm and return home. Jadugriha was on the edge of the town. It was on their path home. Yes. Tell me, who knew of a certain elderly Nishadin and her 5 young sons? Who invited them to the feast for Brahmins? You. Who made sure that they were served with unlimited amount of wine? You have held feasts for so many Brahmins so many times, Kundi. How often have you invited a Nishad, Kirad, Sabar, Naganvanshi forest tribes? You have invited Brahmins. That was the first time you invited Nishads. And did you serve wine each time to whenever Nishads came? No. The Nishadin's eyes are her death sentence. Kundi refuses to lie. Just that one time that the Vratya, the outcasts, were invited. Yes. Drunk on so much wine, the Nishadin mother and her 5 sons lay there senseless. You knew this, yet you escaped through your secret tunnel, didn't you? Yes, I did. The Nishadin, not you. No, it is not me. No, my mother-in-law. I am her eldest daughter-in-law. These women with me were married to her other sons. But you aren't widows, the Nishadin said with pride. We don't deny the demands of life. If we are widowed, we have the right to remarry. If we are widowed, we have the right to remarry. We are not like you. That is, she is saying. Those who wish to can marry again. We did so. We have husbands, children. What will you? No. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, that is the way of the Rajavrata. That is what Kurukshetra was all about. The Lokavrata's ways are different. Tell me, what should I do? You couldn't even remember this sin, causing 6 innocent forest tribals to be burned to death to serve your own interest. You couldn't even remember this sin, Kundi. That was not even a crime in your book. You did not even consider it as a crime. In our eyes, by the laws of Mother Nature, you, your sons, your allies are all held guilty. The Nishadin came even closer. See this forest full of resin-bearing trees. Resin is highly inflammable. Do you know that? Yes. Resin oozes out of the trunks and congeals. Sometimes dry fir cones fall off the trees and roll down the hill slopes. Then, when those dry cones hit the resin, sparks fly. That is how forest fire happens. A fire starts. Forest fire. Forest fire? Kundi is alarmed. Yes, we can tell from smelling the air, just as the other creatures of the forest can, that a fire has started. We can understand it with the smell. That is why we are fleeing like we are. Where to? Far away, beyond the reach of the forest fire, where there are mountains, lakes and winding rivers. Forest fire. Yes, 3 blind, weak and infirm people cannot make it there. One is blind by birth, one has chosen to be blind, and you are the blindest of the 3. You can murder innocents and then forget all about it. Nishadin, is it impossible to forgive me? To beg forgiveness is typical of the Rajavrata. We don't understand such things. When the 5 of us came away here, others came with us. For years, this forest has looked after us. We Nishads, we came here and this is our land now. But the forest fire? The fire will do its work. Then rain will quench the flames. The scorched earth will turn green again. The Nishadin fled. Kundi sat unmoving. Her mind blank, empty of wishes, desires, thoughts and feelings. She's totally devastated. Her mind is completely blank. She got up. She has to go back to the ashram, wait for the forest fire. Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, after their losses of 100 sons, are waiting patiently for death, waiting for the final fire to consume them. Kundi also welcomes death. She is surrendering. Burning alive in the flames of a forest fire, will she pray for forgiveness from a certain death in Nishadin? By dying like this, will she get that forgiveness? In the Rajavrata, does one beg forgiveness for killing the innocent? Kundi doesn't know. Kundi doesn't know. The story ends there with Kundi doesn't know. So this is the story of Kundi and Nishadin, written by Mahashada Devi. And one thing is there, that nobody has ever thought about this Jadugriha episode in this way. Though it is mentioned in Mahabharata, nobody thought it in this way. It is Mahashada Devi who took this aspect and built a story upon it. So I hope all of you like the story. This is the first time I'm reading the full story and explaining whatever is necessary with all the emotions, and I hope you really liked it. This is one story that I really like, one of the short stories that I really like. Of course, Mahashada Devi's Draupadi is my favorite, but second next to her work is this. So I hope all of you like this. Thank you.